our people. I'll look it up here in a minute. Right. I call to order the April 11th, 2023 City Council meeting. Cindy, if you would call the roll.
Okay, and we'll need the invitation.
Oh, that's right. All right. Ken Bartholomew from the First Baptist Church is going to do our invocation, and after that, Mike Morris will lead us in the flag salute. Ken, if you'll stand.
Father, we come to you tonight realizing that your name is holy and worthy of our praise. Father, I pray for this meeting and ask that you would be in the midst of everything that's done and said here. Your word tells us that every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father above. But one of the good and perfect gifts that you give us is the freedom to govern and the freedom to be governed. So tonight, Lord, I pray for these men and women and everyone in this room who has business to do for the city of Durant. I pray, Lord, that everything that's said and everything that's done would be done in an honoring manner, a manner that honors you. Father, I pray that you would give wisdom and knowledge and understanding to every decision that needs to be made. And ultimately, Lord, we pray your ultimate blessings upon our city and upon all who serve it. May you guard our hearts. May you lead us in the days ahead. And Father, may you give us grace and mercy every step of the way. For we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Now, Cindy, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Brittingham.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Morris.
Here.
Acting Mayor Shear.
Here. Okay. We'll start the meeting off. We have some employee service awards to give out, and we're going to adjourn and go down. No, not adjourn. We're going to go down. Our first award goes for 5 years of service to Eric Jeffers from the fire department. He gets a pen and certificate and $50. Years of service, Christopher Bride with the fire department. Years of service, James Berger with the fire department. It's pen and check for $150. And 25 years of service with the fire department, Lenny Spencer. 15 Yeah. I want to after I read it. Yeah. April is Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month. We have a proclamation. Whereas autism affects an estimated 1 in 44 children and is a complex disorder that affects each person differently, resulting in unique strengths and challenges, and whereas autism can cause challenges with verbal and nonverbal communications, social interaction, and repetitive behavior, and can affect anyone regardless of age, race, ethnicity, gender, and socioeconomic background. And whereas autism is often accompanied by medical conditions that impact quality of life, and whereas a comprehensive collaborative approach will help advance research, providing a better understanding of the many forms of autism while strengthening advocacy efforts and ensuring access to services and resources throughout the lifespan. And whereas early diagnosis and intervention tailored to individual needs can have a lifelong benefits, easing the transition to adulthood and fostering greater independence. And whereas each person and family affected by autism should have access to reliable information, supports, and opportunities to live up to their greatest potential. And whereas the city of Durant, Oklahoma is honored to take part in the annual observance of Autism Awareness Month and World Autism Day to address the diverse needs of individuals and families affected by autism. Now, therefore, I, Danny Scher, acting mayor of the city of Durant, Oklahoma, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month in the city of Durant, Oklahoma, to increase understanding and acceptance of Oklahomans with autism spectrum disorder. On this day of 11th April 2023. I'd like to call Reuben Maris. He's on the board of the directors of the Owen Foundations.
Thank you, Councilman, for those kind words, and thank you guys for having us today. My name is Reuben Maris, and I'm part of the Owen Foundation, and I'm the Director of Tribal Relations. I am a Choctaw member, and I am aware that there is a need for a resource here for autism and kids that are on spectrum. So the Owen Foundation is a local 501c3 serving families impacted by autism. Our purpose is to enrich the lives of children and on the autism spectrum by creating opportunities of inclusion, education, and awareness, safety training, and parental and caregiver support. We do have an upcoming event. It's a summer basketball camp that we have for kids that are on the spectrum. It's going to be held at Durant High School. We have more information, and you guys can get on the owenfoundation.org website if you want to volunteer or sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe Councilman Morris would like to speak.
I have a quick comment about the Owen Foundation. People First Industries, as many of you know, is an organization that's been here about 42 years. Now we have about 40 clients of various mental disorders, a lot of autism. And the Owen Foundation is one of our partners that we help, and they help us. And I've known Reuben for years and years. He's a great guy, and we're proud to be associated with them. And on this back row here sits our senior management team. And I say our because I'm on the board of directors, and it's a great organization. Anytime anybody wants a guided tour out there, let me know, and believe me, we can make that happen. Thank you.
Okay. On citizens' comments, we have Jake Milford. I'm not sure what.
We didn't mean to sign it. We thought that was a sign-in sheet.
Okay. So mark you off. Kyle Cole, same thing. Okay. Todd.
Sorry, same thing.
Same thing? Okay. All right. That makes that easy and quick. All right. Next order of business is the consent items. Do any of the council people have points withdraw? Okay. Did we vote on this? No. Okay. Looks like, what do you call the, no, we need a nomination to approve the consent items. Do we have a
Motion to
nomination?
approve consent items.
Second.
Okay. Cindy?
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear.
Aye. On the information items, anybody have any questions with? Did we vote on this? Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, administration. A, consider approval and resolution to participate in the Allergen, CVS, Walgreens, Walmart settlement agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is a result of the global settlement from some of the opioid litigation that the state of Oklahoma participated in through the Attorney General's office, and as a portion of those proceeds are available to sub-state entities, including municipalities. And this is just a statement of support that the city of Durant wishes to participate and receive a sum of that money. It's undetermined as of yet how much that will be. It depends on the number of entities that choose to participate, but the more that, instead of dividing up a certain number and the more that participate, the less you get, it actually works the opposite way. The more participate, the more there is available. So I would just present this. This was at a request of the Attorney General's office that the city of Durant participate, and at some point relatively soon the city would receive a distribution from that fund. I'd like to be able to tell you how much it'll be, but I have no idea.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
I move we approve the resolution to participate in the Allergen, CVS, Walgreens, Walmart settlement agreement.
Second. Cindy, would you call the room?
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear.
Aye. Item B, consider approval of resolution amending certain fees on the fee schedule, directing posting R-2023-08. I'm going to turn this over to Lisa.
Thank you. So we've been hosting a lot of community meetings to talk to the public about infrastructure needs, community trust building, things like that. Back in February of 2021, this council approved a motion or a resolution to update the fee schedule to reduce utility rates by $4 for each customer. The anticipation was that the new automated meter readers would recapture some of the water that was being lost or leaks. We're 2 years down the line, that hasn't happened. It just in the name of getting some conversation generated around this fee schedule, because our team had done some research around this and some work on it. Last fall, I think it was, our city treasurer has some information to share on it. We wanted to be able to bring this up in a public forum and give outgoing council members, the general public that showed up, and incoming council members an opportunity to just kind of engage in this discussion about, should we increase our fees? Our team would like to propose that we put that $4 back on per bill and add a 3% increase, which will still not be as much as what other communities around us are charging. This was not put on the agenda expecting any kind of a vote. It is literally just a public. As you all know, our agendas are to be posted 24 hours before a meeting. My team tries to get the agenda out by Thursday or Friday the week before council meeting in order to give council members and the public an opportunity to really dig into the items that are on the agenda. We try to put attachments, although they're not required to be on there by law. So again, this is an opportunity for us to hear from our team members here, kind of what's been going on with our finances in the city, and our proposal on the fee schedule, without expectation that you all would vote. So with your permission, I'd like to invite our city treasurer up, and Chen, to share some information, if you could.
Please do.
And by the way, there's handouts over here on the table. I'm sure there's not enough for everyone, so if you didn't get one, let us know and we'll make sure we provide those for you.
Is there any question? I think you have all the spreadsheet that I prepared, and then you can see that compared to the prior year and this year, our revenue did not really sharply increase, but our expense, because of the, the fuel price went up, all those inflation, and then really especially the utilities authority, they have a lots of old equipment need to maintain, so that's lots of money, and then you can tell that compared to the revenue and expense, this compared to last year and this year, the same month, February 28th, our expenditure increased $1,387,000. But our revenue did not really increase that much. So that is the thing that I think that we really need to increase our rate to cover our expense.
I have a comment, Lisa. We have kept our water rates solid, steady, and even lowered them by $4, as Lisa mentioned, in spite of the fact that COVID caused everything to go up, supply chain issues, inflation, et cetera. Back in 2019, when the infrastructure task force met, even then they suggested that we raise the water rates by a modest amount, and so this is nothing new. It's a need we've had for several years. Just my opinion.
I'm glad you brought up the infrastructure task force. I had a comment about that. It wasn't the one you did, but when they recommended that proposal, if I'm not mistaken, that was directly tied to an infrastructure projects. And the infrastructure task force in June of 19, their recommendation was to do a gradual decrease of taking money from the DCUFA to fund city operations. And obviously that's a total opposite of what we're talking about here tonight. So I don't know what the answer is, but I don't personally feel like that's the way. I feel like if we're going to take money from the DCUA, that it needs to be dedicated to infrastructure projects, or we're not going to ever get anywhere with fixing the issues in Durant. So I understand inflation and I understand all the other issues we have, but I'm not so sure that, good government is we should be looking at stuff to cut. if there are things to cut. I mean, I don't know, nothing's been presented to this council to cut. There may not be, but that's just my personal opinion. In the end, it may be that we have to raise the rates. I just hope that it's done wisely. And obviously, this is just a discussion tonight and a non-action item, and we're going to have 3 new council members on here as of Monday, and hopefully they'll have some input in the situation.
Well, I have to point out that Oklahoma is the only state that we rely, the municipality rely on the sales tax.
Right.
Sales tax only. So that is the one that, especially the sales tax is hard to predict.
Right.
Because that's why we keep encouraging our residents shop in Durant. So the more you shop in Durant, the you pay tax, and then we can have all this library, police, the safety, the street, but park. I know a lot of people complain about this, but really, if you don't have money, you cannot do all this. That is really reality. And another thing that I want to point out, that even that we back to the original water rate, and then put the 3% is about, for the minimum user, it's about 1.3, less than 1.5 increase per household. If you use the minimum water compared to the prior, you pay the 45, 25, something like that. Yeah. Any questions?
Well, I know my electric bill and my natural gas bill has certainly gone up more than this over the past, I'd say 24 months. And but are there any other comments from the council?
Thank you.
No.
I do have one question, I guess maybe a clarification. The other night at the Water is Life meeting, that I think someone asked about water loss, and obviously I think Mr. Hightower would be the one to answer this. And I believe you stated that night that it was 25% was our current loss of water. Is that correct?
That was my understanding. It may be a little less now.
Okay.
I thought at the time that's what it was, but I think it's a little bit less.
Okay. So
Did we count, Brandon, do you remember, was it around 20-25%? Yeah. It's more like around 15 to 18%. Yeah.
of actual loss we can't account for.
That we can't account for,
Okay.
right?
My question is, you weren't the public works director at the time, but when it was presented to council to do the AMR meters, if I'm not mistaken, the argument was that we had over 50% loss.
We had a lot of loss.
So if we've cut that in half, and even though we dropped the rate just a few dollars, how in the world are we not making more money? That doesn't make sense. I mean, that's a significant amount of loss that we've corrected.
Right, our cost of producing what, the time from 19 to now has tripled also. For example, when I was at the water plant in 19, alum, which is our main coagulant, which we use almost,
Right.
a whole lot of, was 6 cents a pound.
Right.
It's over 26 cents a pound now. I mean, when you're making 6 million gallons of water, you're spending quite a bit of money. And that's not the only chemical that's went up in the water production. Chlorine, for instance, it's tripled, and we use a lot of chlorine. Just about every one of our chemicals has gone up.
So you're basically stating that the entire 25% reduction?
I mean, it's a factor in it. It's
Right.
not the entire thing,
Okay.
but it's a factor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to take no action on this. Hopefully, we'll address this sooner rather than later for the benefit of our city. Brings us to item C, discussion, consideration, possible action on ordinance O-2023-05, amending sections 158.14A1, exemptions from the sign permit requirements, and 158.19A and B, tables of the Durant Code of Ordinances. Lisa, okay. Oh,
Yep, that's me. Good evening. This is to do with the flags, obviously. We did some research in looking at how other cities were handling this. We looked at about 7 or 8 different cities. The question was whether or not they exempted the flags or whether they had what ordinances and requirements they had in place. Several of the cities that we looked at actually completely exempted flags as far as size, flagpoles, anything at all to do with the American flags. Official flags is what they're called, and so that's what several cities have done. One of the stipulations that several cities put in there was that as long as they did not pose a safety or health hazard and were not within the public right of way. The Planning Commission recommended a maximum size of an official flag be raised to 500 square feet. That was their only recommendation at the Planning Commission meeting. Drew was not able to be here, the chairman of the Planning Commission, and he does apologize for that, but Shane Knight, who's the vice chairman, is here if you have further questions as far as what Planning Commission discussed further. But that was the recommendation from Planning Commission, but I'm here to answer any questions or
I have an observation just for everybody. This is very casual. I was in that meeting, and one of the things I did to stay awake was count the ceiling tiles. A 500 square foot flag is about a quarter of this ceiling right here from here out, so that's a pretty good size flag.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I might just make a note. In this ordinance, there was I understand the recommendation on the flag, but there was a suggestion, I guess, that language be stricken that included the height of a flagpole. Obviously, the council can do whatever they want to do, but I foresee some risk with having an unlimited or no height restriction on a flagpole. So I understand everyone likes the thought of a big flagpole and a big flag, but there are also some considerations because the council may be, even though it's in there, the official flag of the United States, there may be some problems limiting what's flown from a flagpole when there are First Amendment considerations and everything else. So I think you open up potentially a can of worms by not putting some restriction on the height of a flagpole, and I'm not suggesting a particular number, but I think that's just something that's either going to have to be addressed now or down the road on a height restriction on the pole itself.
Are there any restrictions on the height? I mean, do we have any?
We did have
Yes.
in the current ordinance,
Yes.
it's 40 feet.
Correct.
And that language in the proposed ordinance has been stricken to remove any restriction on the height of the flagpole.
Correct.
I will tell you that I believe in the highway overlay district, the sign height restriction is, I believe, 90 feet.
That's correct.
So if you think about the Whataburger sign, the Holiday Inn Express sign, the Taco Bell sign, some of those signs, those are probably in the 90-foot range. That's nothing other than a factual observation. It's not necessarily a suggestion, but just so you'll have a height reference.
I have a silly question, Tom.
I was going to say 48 feet, see what kind of reaction I got from people.
I really enjoy seeing a big flag hanging from the top of a fire truck when we have certain things like funerals and the Vietnam flag, that kind of stuff, the Vietnam Memorial. Is this ordinance applicable to temporary displays like that, or is it strictly permanent or semi-permanent?
I think these
Permanent.
would be permanent pole-mounted flags.
Correct. And it does specify like the American flag, an official flag, and it gives that definition of that. So it wouldn't necessarily be just any any flag. It would be, it gives that specification in there, so.
The official flag of
So
the country, state, and
Yes,
city.
the U.S., the Oklahoma flag, Choctaw Nation, any flag that the council deems as an official flag. What else is there in there? That's the biggest part, is those pieces, the four nations, and yeah.
Let's just make it 100 feet. I mean, that cover, I think, everything.
When this
Or
request,
higher. What do you think, Danny?
when this request was submitted, or I guess obviously there's an issue that brought this up, did they have a particular height that they were trying to fly that flag, or?
I think, actually, I think the party is here that this pertains to. Bobby, would you like to get up and?
Yeah. Please come up, Mr.
Put you on the
Story.
spot.
I was requesting a 50-foot pole, and I have a flag that's 10-foot pole, and I have a flag that's 10 by 15. I think larger is better. They don't make an American flag that offends me. So I would just say this much. I think your 100-foot is probably reasonable. And if anything has to go past that at that point, I guess you could look for some type of a waiver through the board. But I think that certainly would fit within my criteria. So, okay. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Bob.
Well, I think the American flag deserves to be flown higher than the Whataburger sign, personally. So, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve ordinance O 2023-05, amending section 15814, with the addition of a height limit of 100 feet in section 1.
Second.
Okay, Cindy, would you call? Vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Make a motion to approve ordinance O 2023-05, section 2, the emergency clause.
Second.
Cindy?
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear.
Aye. Item D, discussion, consideration, possible action on ordinance O-2023-06, amending section 156.034, prevented uses in districts of the Durant City, Durant Code ordinances, and that we'll let Danielle talk about this.
Yep. So this is to amend the ordinances to allow standalone bars and taverns within the central business district. Currently, the ordinance does not allow that, only as an accessory use, which means that you have to have a restaurant in order to have a bar or tavern within the central business district. The ordinance, the way it stands, has a restricted use within the C2 and C3 zoning districts for the standalone bars and taverns. So what Planning Commission talked about this quite in detail that evening. They had a lot of concerns. I say a lot, a couple of concerns, and a couple of those concerns we was able to address after the meeting. So I'll kind of tell you, address those as we speak. One of the concerns that they had was not having any control at all over the bars and taverns that went into the central business district and where they would be located and how many that there were. That was one of the comments that was made. The other one was about nudity and how the adult businesses would be tied to the bars. Our current ordinance is in place stating that you cannot have any nudity or provocative dressing within drinking places or even non-intoxicating drinking places. So they can't have that already. So that addresses the couple of concerns that Planning Commission had. well, I say addresses, but one of the concerns is not addressed, but as far as that piece of it. The COC is required for all drinking places, for anywhere that serves alcohol. It is required to get a COC whether or not they change ownership, whether or not they are coming in. If it's required to get the Enable license, they have to come in and get a COC from the city. That requires building inspectors to go out and inspect the building. That requires fire marshal to go out and inspect. That also requires me to sign off on the zoning and look at the zoning and make sure that that's good to go. Now, what Planning Commission recommended was to go as a restricted use within the Central Business District. By doing that, that requires them to get a conditional use permit. That requires them to go through a public hearing which goes to Planning Commission and City Council, just the same as a similar item that you'll hear later this evening. So just to kind of let you know some of that information of what that means if it's considered a restricted use.
So real quick, how much time does the CUP process add to a business getting licensed to open up?
Sure. So an application is required to be submitted 36 days prior to a Planning Commission meeting. And then you have the Planning Commission meeting, and the very next week you have a City Council meeting. That's if we get everything submitted and everything in on time. If something happens that they don't get everything submitted on time, that could put them on another agenda, which could put them 2 months. But we can get it done in about a month and a half if everything gets submitted properly.
Go ahead, Councilman.
I was just going to say, what is the benefit of having the conditional use permit for this, in this scenario?
In this scenario, it would really, the only thing that I can think of, and I was trying to even figure out like where the conditional use permit came from in the other zoning districts. And the only history that I was even able to find was years ago, and this is well before my time. Mike may be able to remember some of this. Or Danny maybe, I don't know. A long time ago, the Central Business District in that Main Street area had a lot of bars that created a lot of issues. When that happened, that's when other areas also was also an issue. So they also went around and did the same thing in the other zoning districts. But that's why they left it off the CBD, is my understanding. What the only benefit now would be is for the city for council to be able to know, okay, this is coming in, we know where it's going to be, but that's really it. They're still going to have to get a COC regardless. So they're still going to have to come in with staff and have a building inspection, have for fire protection and safety. They're still going to have those two things regardless, whether or not they get a CUP. And Shane's here if you like further questions on the Planning Commission discussion on that piece of it. But
this just seems like it just adds unnecessary burdens on the prospective business and everything else.
Well, if that's the only concern, if it's the number of them, how many's too many? And it puts the Planning Commission or the council, is the 5th one too many? Is the 7th one too many? Is the 10th one too many? And when you have an arbitrary decision like that, that's problematic to defend if there's an objection to that. So even beyond the procedural steps that they have to take, unless there's other considerations other than just sheer number of businesses, that's problematic to defend if that's the basis for a denial.
Tom, along those lines, back in the 80s, we had about a dozen pizza joints, and they thinned themselves out. And I think in this case, the Gentlemen's Club is probably the biggest objection anyone would have, and we've already got that taken care of by not allowing it. So I see no reason in making things even more complicated than they already are, like Danny just mentioned. I totally believe in regulation, but there's a point we got to kind of get them in business, in my opinion.
And I would assume that when there was an issue with it in the past, that was probably before we were a Main Street designated community.
I would have no
Possibly.
clue on that one. I really don't know.
Danny, do you remember the Cattleman's Bar?
Oh, I remember that, the 109,
I think I saw Robert Holiday in there once.
South 40.
Is there a fee attached to that conditional use permit?
There's an application fee and a publication fee.
How much is that?
The application fee is $300. The publication fee ranges about $100 depending on what the newspaper charges, but they usually charge on the legal description. It runs right around $100.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Knight?
Oh, then
did
you also have the, I'm sorry, Steve.
No, it's fine.
You also have the abstract list of property owners. That's a list that I've been told it runs around $1,000.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Mr. Knight?
I think the main concern of the commission was the potential for adult establishments. The idea of a limitless structure in city ordinances is a little bit concerning sometimes, and so to have no limit, specifically in keeping in mind with the potential for adult establishments, but we answered that question afterwards because there's a separate ordinance that takes care of that. So,
Thank you. This ordinance as written, is it including the conditional use permit, or is it not? It's a motion and approved.
The way that it's written, the ordinance itself, the way it's written has the restricted on there, but you could do it as a motion to allow by right, which would just be literally changing a letter.
Essentially, Councilman, as it's written now, it requires the conditional use permit, and that's what the R in the statute or the ordinance there indicates. The council has basically three options. You could deny this and not allow standalone bars at all in the central business district. You could adopt it as presented, where it requires the conditional use permit, or you could amend it as presented to change that R to an X, and that X would allow standalone bars in the central business district by right without going through the conditional use permit process.
Well, my personal thoughts is we need to do X. We need to not do the conditional use. That just seems an unnecessary burden.
I'm in favor.
Do we have a motion?
I'm not seeing the R.
It's on page.
It's not actually on the agenda.
It's on the table that was attached to it. Let me find the right page number.
It's on page 2. Sorry. It's on page 2 of the table.
So you just need to simply be stated at changing the permitted use in districts from R to X.
Yes.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve ordinance O 2023-06, amending section 156.134, changing the permitted uses in districts from R to X of the Durant Code of Ordinances, section 1.
Second.
Okay, just to clarify, when we vote, if an aye vote on this, it means we are doing away with the conditional use permit.
You're doing two things. You are allowing bars in the central business district that are not allowed now, but you are allowing them without the step of the conditional use permit. So that's what an aye vote does.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Okay, we've had a motion, we've had a second. Cindy, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear.
Aye. Item E, discussion, consideration. Whoops, we got the
Make a motion to approve section 2, the emergency clause.
That's right. I always forget I always forget the emergency clause. All right, we've got a motion seconded. Cindy?
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear.
Aye. That brings us to discussion, consideration, possible action on final plat request for property near Sunnyside Road and Sunny Meadows Drive. That's PC-2023-05. Danielle?
This is a final plat request. Their current zoning is ag. Basically, what they're wanting to do, the property is just over, just about 1.14 acres, or 1.4 acres, I apologize. What they're wanting to do is divide the property into 2 lots. They're wanting to divide one of the lots into about a little over ½ acre and the other one to about 0.8 acres. And this is also tied to a rezoning, which is the next item. What they're wanting to do is build 2 residential houses on the single-family homes on the lots. This is in Rural Water 5 district. They've already gotten the letter from Rural Water 5. Planning Commission did recommend approval, and staff has also signed off on this and recommended approval as well. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? You have a motion.
Make a motion to approve item PC 2023-05 for the final plat near Sunnyside and Sunny Meadows Drive.
Second.
Cindy?
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear.
Aye. Item F, discussion, consideration, possible action on ordinance 0-2023-07, a rezoning request from A1 General Agriculture to R1 Single Family Residential for property near Sunnyside Road and Sunny Meadows Drive, PC 2023-05.
So this is the rezoning that's tied with the final plat that was just approved. As a note, there was a typo in the ordinance. You guys received that at your seats tonight. I've already talked to Tom earlier this afternoon, and there wasn't any issues because the publication was right and the Planning Commission agenda was correct. It was just a typo as far as the type of zoning as well as the intersection. But we corrected that, and that was at your seat this evening. The lot itself is already under the size of the requirements in ag, and they're just wanting to do the rezoning to make it a legal lot.
And what was the Planning Commission's recommendation?
Oh, sorry, the Planning Commission did recommend approval as this as well, and staff does too. Apologize.
Any questions? Do you have a motion?
I move we approve ordinance 0-2023-07, rezoning request from A1 to R1 near Sunnyside Road and Sunny Meadows Drive, PC 2023-05.
Second.
We've had a motion and a second. Cindy?
Okay. Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear.
Aye.
I forgot to say section 1 on that.
Sorry.
Let me assume that.
Okay.
Also move we approve the emergency clause 0-2023-07, section 2.
Second.
Okay. Cindy?
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear.
Aye. Item G, discussion, consideration, possible action on a replat request for property near 21st Avenue and Main Street. It's PC 2023-07. Danielle?
The applicant has approached us with a request to build a commercial business near 21st Avenue and Main Street. They have filed for a replat request. The property is approximately 0.96 acres at the corner of 21st and Main. Planning Commission has recommended approval. Staff has also signed off supporting and recommending the approval of the replat since it does meet all the requirements.
Any questions? Do I have questions? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the replat request for property near 21st Avenue and Main Street, PC 2023-07.
Second.
Is that a motion? Second. Cindy, go.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear.
Aye. Item H, discussion, consideration, possible action on a replat request for property near South 2nd Avenue and West Tennessee Street, and that's PC 2023-08.
Yes, the applicant approached us regarding the platting of this property to separate the lot into 2 lots and build a single-family home on one lot and a duplex on the other lot. The property is approximately 0.32 acres. The plat shows that Lot 1A will be 8,000 square feet and Lot 1B will be 6,000 square feet. Both of these lots will meet requirements of the current zoning. Planning Commission has recommended approval. Staff has also signed off supporting the approval of the replat because it does meet all the requirements.
Thank you. Questions? Have a motion.
I have a question. What is the current zoning there?
It's R2.
And they made the lot size for R2.
Correct. For single family, it is 6,000 square feet, and it literally just meets the requirements, and 8,000 for the duplex.
Any other questions? Do you have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the replat request for property near South 2nd Avenue and West Tennessee Street, PC 2023-08.
Second.
Cindy, would you call a vote?
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear.
Aye. Item I,
Vice Mayor Danny, on this item, I happen to be a member of the Board of Directors of People First Industries, which this item pertains to, so I'm going to recuse myself from this item.
okay. This discussion, consideration, possible action on planned unit development, PUD, request for property located at 3324 Enterprise Drive. That's PC 2023-11.
It's me again.
Danielle.
Yes. So, this is a planned unit development request to be able to place an additional building on the lot where People First is. They're wanting to place an admin building where essentially it's going to be several offices within there. It'll be 82 by 58. At the Planning Commission, we did have a few items that were still needed. However, as of today, we received all those items and everything is ready to go. Staff does not have any further items that are needed or any concerns, so we are good to go as far as the recommending approval and have everybody signed off on the item at this point. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. It's the whole reason we're here is because of the multiple buildings on one lot.
And the Planning Commission approved this as well, right?
Yes, they did recommend approval contingent upon everything, staff receiving everything that's needed, and that has been done.
Yeah. And that was your only hesitation on the approval in the memorandum was not having the signatures?
Correct. We didn't have we still needed some more information on the plat as well as having the signatures, and we received that as of today.
Any questions? We have a motion.
Make a motion to approve the planned unit development request for property located at 3324 Enterprise Drive, PC 2023-11.
Second.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller,
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear,
Aye. Item J, discussion, consideration, possible action on final plat request for property located near Washington Avenue and Mockingbird Lane. That's PC 2023-12. Danielle?
This is a final plat request. This was on the agenda at the last month's meeting. However, the applicant withdrew the application because there was 3 lots on the plat, and Planning Commission was a little hesitant about approving it because one of the lots did not meet zoning requirements, and so they've decided to withdraw the application. That only separated into 2 lots, where the current house is on the far north lot, and then there's the vacant piece is the southmost lot. And the long-term plan, well, short-term really, is to place a church on the southmost lot. And that's the next item, which is the conditional use permit. And that's really what they're wanting to do. Planning Commission did recommend approval of this item.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
I move we approve the final plat request for property located near Washington Avenue and Mockingbird Lane, PC 2023-12.
Second.
Cindy, would you call vote?
Councilmember Brittingham,
Aye.
Councilmember Miller,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear,
Aye. Item K, discussion, consideration, possible action on resolution R-2023-06, a conditional use permit, CUP, request for property located near Washington Avenue and Mockingbird Lane, PC 2023-12. Danielle?
This is the conditional use permit to be able to place a church or worship facility it'll be the 6.5 acre lot that'll be right at the corner at Washington and Mockingbird. The current ordinances consider a worship facility as a restricted use, which requires them to come before City Council and Planning Commission for a conditional use permit. Planning Commission did recommend approval, and staff doesn't have any issues either.
Any questions? We have a motion.
I move we approve resolution R-2023-06, a conditional use permit request for property located near Washington and Mockingbird, PC 2023-12.
Second.
Cindy, would you call the vote?
Councilmember Brittingham,
Aye.
Councilmember Miller,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear,
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Item L, consider approval of resolution authorizing the calling and holding of an election in the city of Durant, state of Oklahoma, the city, for the purpose of submitting to the registered qualified electors of said city the questions of approval or rejection of an ordinance of the city which amends ordinance number 1430 of the city and ordinance number 1431 of the city by eliminating the termination date for the collection of the excise tax, sales tax, levied pursuant to the said ordinances, by modifying the purpose of said tax and containing other provisions relating thereunto. That's R 2023-09. I'm going to turn this over to Lisa.
Yep, thank you. So again, this item L and item M are both on this agenda just to regenerate that conversation as we have council members outgoing and new council members coming in. We've had a lot of discussion about our infrastructure needs, mainly streets, street improvements for our town. This item was brought before this council in August of 2021. The timing wasn't right, didn't have the engagement with the public at the time. We kind of have that conversation going on now, so we wanted to bring this back on the agenda, highlight it, and bring the conversation back to the public in a transparent way as you hand things off to new council. So no intention for a vote, just engaging folks in the conversation again. And if you all have comments to share, about, your thoughts on the ordinance, it's an opportunity to share that now.
I just have one comment. Since this is a non-action item, I just want to say thank you to the acting mayor for taking no action and giving the newly elected council members an opportunity to have a seat at the table to discuss this and make a decision in the future and actually represent those citizens that elected them last week. So again, thank you.
Any other comments? Did we address item M, or we didn't go through M? Okay, I can skip item M, or no, okay, we're gonna take no action on item M, same thing. We're taking no action on item M and L. Okay. All right. Brings us to new business. Do we have any new business? All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Acting Mayor Shear.
Aye. Right, we do have outgoing council members, and I think we. Okay, you want to do the other two first? Okay. It's about 10 after 7. I call to order the Durant City Utility Authority meeting for April 11th, 2023. Would you call the roll,
Okay.
Cindy?
Trustee Brittingham.
Here.
Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee Morris.
Here.
Acting Chairman Shear.
Here. Consent items, one. Does anybody have anything they wish to remove from the consent?
Actually, there are 2 items on there I think that need to be removed. I mean, items B and C, I think there's discussion to be had. We're on the Utilities Authority, right?
Right. Okay. Okay.
I make a motion to approve consent item A.
Second.
Cindy, would you call the roll?
Trustee
Approval.
Brittingham.
Aye.
Trustee Miller. Trustee Morris.
Aye.
Acting Chairman Shear.
Aye. Okay. Possible action of the amended industrial water purchase agreement with the Rural Water District 5. That's C-2023-23. Lisa, would you take this?
So actually, I'm just going to introduce the subject, and I'll allow Tom and a couple of other folks in the audience here take it on. This is a negotiation item. This is the proposal by Rural Water 5 on both their industrial and residential water buy contracts.
Thank you, Lisa. Mr. Mayor, Council, this has been an ongoing discussion probably now for a year and a half, and just the need to enter into a new contract between the city and Rural 5. As you're probably aware, the city of Durant provides water to both Rural 5 and Rural 2, more so to Rural 5. And They have done so historically under two separate contracts, one for industrial users and one for residential users. And as the population and the building has continued in Rural 5, they've needed more water. The numbers that you see before you today are after consultations with both Rural 5 and city staff on what our production capacity is. Because what I didn't want to see happen is that we commit a certain amount to Rural 5 and Rural 2 and other users, and then have a contractual obligation to them, and then have a shortage for our own customers. One thing that we have, I believe, included and need to make sure, but that if there are conservation measures that are required for municipal users, that Rural 5 require those same conservation measures for its users. The problem there is enforcement. They don't have a particular enforcement method if they were to employ conservation measures. Nevertheless, I think that's a fair requirement. I did get a request late yesterday from the attorney for Rural 5 requesting that either we consolidate these purchase contracts into a single contract that just has the combined number of gallons to be used as Rural 5 sees fit, or reduce the number of gallons in the industrial contract and add that number back to the residential contract. I believe in the proposed industrial contract, it's 1 million gallons per day. Apparently they rarely exceed 500 to 600,000 gallons per day, but would like that number added back to the residential number because they do approach that 2 million gallons is what's proposed. In the past, it's been as low as 1 million gallons a day, and they exceeded that all the time. So that's kind of where we're at this point. I will tell you a concern also that was expressed sort of early on in this process and by me and by others, is that there was a perception that may have exceeded the actual event, but Rural 5 was selling a considerable amount of water to the city of Calera, and then some to the city of the town of Colbert. My concern was that they were taking water that we were producing, funneling it through, selling it to Calera, and making money and making money on it, because there wasn't a restriction on how much they could charge a retail customer when we were selling it to them wholesale. That concern was probably a little bit exaggerated. They did sell to Calera in what started out as an emergency type scenario because Calera didn't have the capacity that they needed. Calera has since, I believe, drilled some wells. They're still selling to them, but there's some restrictions on how much they can charge. And it turned out Rural 5 wasn't making a bunch of money selling water to Calera. They were passing it through basically for cost of distribution. But my biggest concern on this whole thing was A, making sure we were making enough money to cover cost, and B, making sure that we had the production capacity to still have adequate water supply for Durant users before we contract to sell a certain amount to third parties.
We do have a member of Rural Water 5 here, if you do have questions of them. Mr. Jackson.
Would you like to come up and speak?
Thank you, guys. My name is Jeff. I'm the manager at Rural Water 5. And like I say, any questions, I'll try to answer.
Well, I've got some questions. Probably between you and Tom, maybe I can get them answered.
Okay.
Just maybe some general observations and trying to understand the contract and our agreement. We're talking about the industrial water purchase contract. Right now, it's set at 10 years, and part of the contracts are wanting to increase that to 25 years. Is that correct?
Well, that's what the contract says, yeah, but I don't really know where the 25 come from.
Okay.
Like I say, the original contract was 10 years.
Okay.
Which we're probably on around the 5th year of it.
Okay. I guess the most important question I have is that the rate, I believe, on the industrial that we're charged is $2.35 per thousand. Does that sound right?
Per this contract, the new one.
For this one, okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything, and I guess you guys are governed by the federal government on a lot of stuff you do, is that a set price? My question is because I saw the contract from 2016, so basically for the last 7 years, the price has been $2.35 per thousand gallons. The new contract also states that it's $2.35 per thousand gallons.
Correct.
So there's no mechanism in place or restrictions by the federal government that says we have to keep that rate. I guess that's the question I'm asking.
Not that I'm aware
For
of.
you or Tom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware.
All right.
Yeah.
The contract as it's written, I mean, if we agreed to this 10 or 25 years, either or, is it done, or is there an opportunity to renegotiate pricing on an annual basis, or do we know?
I mean, certainly both parties could agree to come back to the table. You could come back to the table every 90 days, as long as both parties agree. Okay. But if you enter into a contract for 25 years, with the exception of some unforeseen circumstances, it would be difficult to go back in. Now, certainly if chemicals went up and cost of production went up and it was just absolutely impossible to produce water at $2.35 per thousand, conceivably you could go back to the table. But that is a very valid concern. That's not in my circle.
Okay.
That's something that city staff probably needs to weigh in on. Is that price point good for the foreseeable future, or is that something that we need to limit the scope here, or have an automatic increase at certain intervals? That's beyond where I'm qualified to say. That's more of a staff question.
So, to follow my line of thought here, and of course we're going to look at the other one in a minute, it's kind of the same scenario. The only difference is it's the same contract since 2012 and the price hasn't changed. We literally earlier in the evening talked about raising utility rates on the citizens of Durant because of the massive increase in chemicals. And yet here we have a contract with a person, and don't get me wrong, I'd love to see this happen and get done, because I know there's houses by the hundreds that are getting held up because this is taking a long time. But I have an issue selling it to the same price to a retailer or a wholesaler so he can sell it retail, and obviously making money, or they wouldn't be doing it. And we have no mechanism in place to cover the cost of alum at 6 cents, and now it's 26 cents, and all the other chemicals. I personally do not like the way it's written. I mean, I feel like there needs to be a mechanism in place where we can address these same issues that we are discussing, and probably very likely in the foreseeable future there'll be a rate hike on the citizens of Durant. And I think that we need to be fair and partial to all parties that are benefiting from the city of Durant water. That's my take. So.
Understandable.
I certainly concur with you, Steve. My thoughts are this needs more work.
I mean, I'm not in the business of holding up construction, and I know there's a lot of houses that need to be done, and you guys need more water, and I'm 100% on board with that. I just think we just need to be fair and how we do it. And that's my input.
I think what I would, and again, my scope is fairly limited. And I think the price just is going to be what it is, and once staff weighs in to see where the price point is appropriate and how it's structured, I feel confident that we can reach an agreement with Rule 5. It's the capacity issue that is the biggest question, I think, for me, and I think it might be good if staff could address that and, confirm that the requested amount here is doable. And if it is, then we can work on the price going forward and bring this back before council, maybe at the next meeting or the next special meeting or whenever it is. But as long as staff can confirm that the volume is doable.
Yeah, I know I certainly didn't get this information in time to study it, and I just don't see how we could take any action on this myself. So I'm going to suggest that we take no action on item B. And that brings us to C, which is pretty much the same thing. Discussion, consideration, possible action on amended water purchase agreement with the Rural Water District 5. That's C-2023-25. Do we want to talk about it, or is it pretty much the same thing? I'm going to say let's take no action on it.
I can just tell you in the comments that I jotted down, it's the same scenario. The rates have not changed since 2012, and this is a 45-year contract if that's what is negotiated, and that just seems unfair.
I agree. So we're going to take no action on item C too. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Informational items. Anybody have any questions? Okay, brings us to 4, administration. A, consideration and possible action granting the mayor and staff authority to sign consent order in case number 23-096. Lisa?
So this consent order is in relation to the violations that we've received since 2019 for the landfill. And we did have a conversation with them back in February, I believe. So this is the resulting document here, the consent order. We just received it, and it will require signature by the mayor.
Okay.
And if you have any questions about it, our Public Works Director is here.
You don't have any questions? I can tell you most of these violations have been looked at, and some of them has been taken care of. We have our slope plan submitted. We're waiting on feedback from it. The items that were on the side of the slope have been removed. We have started correcting the slope on the side of the west slope and east slope. We're about to fill in one cell, so it's kind of tying into the east slope. So, but
since you're up here, I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
Since you volunteered to come up here. More of an observation. I noticed that I went out there the other day, and it's pretty steep to get to the top of the hill now.
yeah, we're taking a correction in that. The road that goes in behind, they'll be able to drive it on it
Okay.
after tomorrow.
And the other one I have is, I know that I mentioned this a few months ago, and I'm not sure where we're at with it, but I saw a city employee out there picking up trash, which was part of the violation, and I just want to know if you know where we're at with the community service workers.
We're actually waiting to sit down with the judge, I believe is what the last I've heard on it. We're trying to get those guys so we can utilize that source.
Right.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
And you will notice in there that the one item that continues to be an issue across the board with DEQ for the city of Durant is our financial audits that we get every year. We receive those by the end of March typically, and DEQ wants those by the end of December. So we're having conversations internally about how we can move that timeline so maybe we can meet the deadline.
Okay.
But that's been an ongoing issue forever.
Can our auditors, is it, okay, all right. Anything else on this? Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve granting the mayor and staff authority to sign the consent order in case number 23-096.
Cindy?
Trustee Brittingham.
Aye.
Trustee Miller. Trustee Morris.
Aye.
Acting Chairman Shear.
Aye. Do we have any new business? We have a motion to adjourn.
Most to adjourn.
Second.
Trustee Brittingham.
Aye.
Trustee Miller. Trustee Morris.
Aye.
Acting Chairman Shear.
Aye. It's 7:30. I call the Durant Airport Authority meeting for April 11th, 2023 to order. Did you call the roll, Cindy?
Trustee Brittingham.
Here.
Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee Morris.
Here.
Acting Chairman Shear.
Here. Consent items. Does anybody wish to remove any of the consent items? Do we have a motion to approve the consent items?
Most to approve consent items.
Second.
Cindy?
Trustee Brittingham.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Morris.
Aye.
Acting Chairman Shear.
Aye. On item 3, information items, does anybody have any question on that? Okay, that brings us to administration. I see no items under administration. So item 5, new business. Do we have any new business? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Sandy?
Trustee Brittingham.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Morris.
Aye.
Acting Chairman Shear.
Aye. Okay. Before we leave, the what?
more.
Oh. What is that? I don't have that one.
Here you go.
Okay. It's 7:32. I call the Durant Development Authority meeting for April the 11th, 2023 to order. Cindy?
Trustee Brittingham.
Here.
Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee Morris.
Here.
Acting Chairman Shear.
Here. Consent items. Does anybody wish to remove the consent items? Do we have a motion to approve the consent items?
Motion to approve consent items.
Second.
Cindy?
Trustee Brittingham.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Morris.
Aye.
Acting Chairman Shear.
Aye. Under item 3, there are no informational items. Item 4, administration, there are no items. Item 5, do we have any new business? All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Cindy?
Trustee Brittingham.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Morris.
Aye.
Acting Chairman Shear.
Aye. Okay, now, before we leave, we would like to recognize and thank our outgoing council members. And I think we have a certificate. Okay. We go down front. Take our pictures. Here's an award of appreciation presented to Steve Brittenell on this day, on this 11th day of April 2023, in recognition and celebration of 4 years of service as an at-large council member, with sincere appreciation for your exemplary and invaluable leadership of the city of Durant. And because it's been a privilege and honor to serve with you, thank you for your service. Award of appreciation presented to Mike Morris on this day, 11th day of April 2023, in recognition and celebration of 4 years of service as a council member in Ward 4, with sincere appreciation for your exemplary and invaluable leadership in the city of Durant. Thank you, Mike.